Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well. Today as we come to our word from the word, and today that word is fear. Fear. Now, really what we need to talk about is facing our fears, and as we follow right on the heels of those beautiful words, that Esther had come to her place as queen for such a time as this. But as you follow along in the story, you see then she has to go out and actually follow through with what she has been challenged by Mordecai to do and encouraged to do, and praise God for his leading as well, and his urging for her to step out in faith. And we see that as she comes to the king, risking her own life, she comes risking being able to be killed right there because she was not called to the king, and he reaches out the scepter to her, and she is spared. And the king, he loves Queen Esther, and so he is ready and willing to do whatever she asks. And so as she is making her requests known, is what we're going to find out today. I think it's something to see also what happens to Haman. Now, if you've been reading the story, you see that Haman had gone out and he was trying to basically rally everyone against Mordecai and had built the gallows ready to hang Mordecai on him. He thinks that this little dinner party that Esther's throwing for him is for him and the king. He thinks he's getting ready to be promoted, and he thinks all these great things are getting ready to happen. Well, something great in scale is getting ready to happen, but maybe not the way that he thinks. So in Esther chapter 7, I'm going to look at verses 3 and 4 and then skip down to verse 10. I want you to see how God works through this. It says, "Then Queen Esther answered and said, If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me at my petition and my people at my request. For we have been sold, my people and I, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. Had we been sold as male and female slaves, I would have held my tongue, although the enemy could never compensate for the king's loss." I think it's interesting that she puts that in there. But as you follow along and he listens and wants to know who did this and who was responsible, and she says Haman, and you see in verse 10, it says, "So they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided." So see what happens sometimes when we face our fears. Now, we could go through countless stories of people that faced their fears and were not victorious on this side of eternity. You go through Hebrews 11, and it was there that were many that were not spared, and they were not even counted worthy to be able to stay here, that Lord had something better planned for them in glory. Now, if you just think about that, if we realize that God has our best interest at heart, and that no matter what we do, if we stand firm in our faith, if we stand with our eyes fixed on Him, if we function as Christians ought to function, if we fulfill those times as such as these, the way that we're supposed to, if we do all these things, then our fears will subside. They won't go away. They'll never go away, because the enemy is always at work. And we are flesh, and we do have a sin nature. So it is easy to want to and to hear the temptation and feel the temptation to distrust God, or to question God, or to live in fear. But we're reminded as well that God has not given us a spirit of fear. So what we need to do is we need to face our fears head on, relying and trusting on God to lead us through every single moment. And just as soon as I know Esther, as she was probably shaking on the inside as she was going to the king, and until that moment when he reached out the scepter, and that meant that she was accepted into his presence. I think up until that moment, I believe she still had some fears. Who wouldn't? But I also believe in that moment when she saw God work in the king's heart, and that he reached out his scepter, that she knew that, yes, God has put me here for this time. Now I can face my fears. I can ask for the thing that would seem to be the impossible to ask. But the king agrees. And as you follow along in the story, you see that Haman is the one that pays the price. And Esther and Mordecai and the Jewish people are the ones who receive the reward. I wonder what might happen today if we would just simply face our fears, trusting in God, bathing every decision in prayer, but still facing those fears head on. God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.